We are a river city, a bold city, the First Coast, a place to create and to belong. Here, the sun shines a little brighter, and so do the people. We share a love for our region, a pride for Jacks, and a passion for the beautiful game, dedicated to giving everyone a sporting chance. Together, we will elevate soccer and sport in our community by lifting every voice. We are Sporting Club Jacksonville. We are Sporting Jacks.
Hello and welcome into the Sporting Jacks Report. I'm Cole Kemper. Mauricio Ruiz will join us in just a moment. Coming up, a closer look at what the U.S. men's national team accomplished in their two friendlies in Florida over the past week. Plus, some local soccer players had the chance to showcase their skills in front of college coaches from around the region. But let's start with the U.S. women's national team, more specifically with the futures roster that head coach Emma Hayes has brought to work against the senior national team this week. Among the players invited into the Futures Camp was the former Bolles and Florida Elite player Avery Patterson. Patterson played collegiately at North Carolina and just completed her rookie season in the NWSL with the Houston Dash. This week she's been given a chance to showcase her skills in front of the national team. She joins us now. And Avery, tell me, what has it meant to you to be a part of this Futures Camp with Emma Hayes and the national team?
I don't want to say I never thought I would have an opportunity like this. But with that being said, growing up, I was underrated on a lot of the like soccer.coms, all of the top pro stockers. You know, I think I came out of high school being a 3-star athlete, and like I knew that wasn't defining me. But for me, I'm just enjoying every second of it. I mean, it's you can either take it one or two ways. You can look at it as it's a super high pressure situation where you have to perform all the time and, you know, get everything right and, you know, focus in on all the little details. Or you can take it, this is how I'm looking at it, is I'm so lucky that I get to be here and to learn under these, world-class, world-famous coaches that even if I do mess up, even if I do make a mistake, I'm still learning from it. And I mean, again, that's such a cliche way to look at it, I know, but it's just about enjoying where you're at and enjoying the process. So I mean, the atmosphere, I think it's either or. Again, it's either you're looking at it from the high pressure one, or you're looking at it from, okay, I'm going to enjoy this and learn as much as I can. So for me, I'm learning, I'm enjoying it, and trying to enjoy the process.
Has there been a moment that's been a particularly big moment that really stands out to you so far?
I mean, honestly, all of them are big moments just because, like I said, Emma Hayes is such a world-renowned coach, and Denise Reddy, her assistant, is some of the most tactically intelligent coaches that I've ever played for. And that was our third practice yesterday. So for me to be able to say that, and I mean, I've had, you know, some of the best coaches that I have ever had the privilege of being coached by. But after 3 practices, it's like, whoa, these people, there's a reason that they are the full team coaches, you know? It's just an interesting situation. And again, they went on after 30 days to win an Olympic gold medal. And like that in and of itself should kind of hint at what her training sessions are like. Like they're intense, they're quick, they're fast paced. We're getting stuff done within our hour and a half, our 90 minutes of being out on the field. So every moment has been super enjoyable, and not a single one has stood out. But just the 3 days as an accumulation have been super fun.
From a player's perspective, what has it meant to you that Emma Hayes has decided to bring a futures camp in?
Yeah, I mean, she invests in young talent, and she's known to invest in young talent. Even when she was at Chelsea, like she was constantly bringing in people that were 20 years old and younger. And I think there's a misconception where it falls upon younger people where it's, oh, they're not as experienced, they shouldn't be called in until they're in their, you know, later 20s. I was about to say older, but later 20s isn't really that old. But yeah, most girls, unless you're that one special person, aren't going to get called in until, again, later 20s. And so the fact that she's, like you said, casting a wider net around for the talent pool is something that I think has benefited U.S. soccer in the last year or so, and definitely has been a benefit for me. Yeah.
Before we let you go, I have to ask you, as a Jacksonville native, what your thoughts are about having a professional women's team coming to Jacksonville starting in August.
It's incredible. I mean, like, just women's sports in general are they're on a chart going like this. Like, I am very lucky to be in this industry as like when I am, just because like a couple years ago, that wouldn't have even been a sentence coming out of your mouth. Like, that wouldn't have even been a thought for anyone in Jacksonville. So, I mean, for it to be in my hometown too, like, Jacksonville is still my home. It's always going to be my home. Like, that's where my parents are. That's where my family is. The fact that they could pick up and say, oh, like, Avery doesn't have a game this weekend, we can head over and watch a game, wherever theirs is. Like, that is so cool to me. And I think Jacksonville's such a great area to have it, just because everyone does care so much about the sports. And like, going to Jumbo Shrimp games is a part of my childhood. Jags games like that, I hope so dearly that going to the Jacksonville professional women's soccer team becomes a part of other people's childhoods. I think that's so cool. I had, as I mentioned earlier, Mike Pickett's daughter, Carson, to look up to. And that was only one person. And so if there's a whole team of them, I would be walking around. If I was walking around the town center and saw a Jacksonville USL player, I would have cried, like, when I was growing up. My mom would have been like, go get a picture with them now. So I think, like, having 24 to 30, whatever their roster limit is, girls to be able to look up to is something so special. And it's something that is going to benefit the girls soccer players coming out of Jacksonville.
Great, Avery, thanks so much. We'll be looking forward to seeing your progress as the years go by. After the U.S. women's national team camp, Avery will get back to Houston for her second pro season with the Dash. Mauricio Ruiz now joins us. Now, what are your takeaways from what you heard from Avery?
Well, I think we need to put that into an archive, Cole, and whenever Avery's ready to come back home, we need to play that back to her, because she will be that player that young girls will be looking up to and wanting pictures with, that she once looked up to Carson Pickett, as she mentioned, during her time growing up. I mean, that was special. That was special to hear a player that's come from this environment that has made it. But how many young girls did not make it because they did not have the access to someone like Carson Pickett, like she did, having played for Coach Pickett himself, Carson's dad. There are many other young players, boys and girls, that don't have that access, that don't have that opportunity. And that's what bringing a professional team into a city, that's the impact right there. You just heard it from Avery. That's the impact that he can have in the next generation of players coming through.
Yeah, the word you use, I think, is the right one, and that is impact. We hear that impact each and every time. Well, the U.S. men's national team got off to a hot start in 2025. First, a 3-1 win over Venezuela last Saturday, following up with a 3-0 victory over Costa Rica Wednesday night in Orlando. Now, how would you grade the men's national team's performance over the last week, and what did they accomplish that was the most important in these two games?
Well, you have to give them an A+. Two good opponents. You play Venezuela, you play Costa Rica, and I'm just reading through some of the stats here. I mean, impressive, especially when you consider that it's the men's version of the Futures Camp. It's a domestic camp with only MLS players, and you have to give Coach Pochettino and his staff a lot of credit, because he has not worked with a lot of these players. So Venezuela, I know it's probably their B team as well, but it's a team rising in the CONMEBOL in South America. And Costa Rica is never an easy opponent, regardless if you're playing them in season or off season, in difficult conditions. Just in this past week in Orlando on Wednesday. So I would give them an A+ for this performance.
Well, in two games, we saw a lot of players getting the kinds of looks with the national team that we wouldn't ordinarily see during a full international break. We also saw how Mauricio Pochettino is trying to shape the team. What stood out to you from that standpoint?
Well, it's a great benefit when you're able to bring Tim Ream and Walker Zimmerman as a staple of your back line. And he also used, Anthony Robinson as a right back against Costa Rica, which is a traditional center back, which lets you know that he's going to rotate the left back to really go and defend with a back three, almost as three center backs. So his tactical flexibility based on the players that he has, it's really interesting how he used it. But I love that he just attacks with players. And there are a couple players, Cole, that I think elevated their grade. And when the next full call up will come, I think there's a few players that from this camp, domestic, that will be into the next full camp.
All right, time now for Mauricio's Corner. We're going to continue our conversation about the U.S. men's national team, and in particular, some of the players you thought took advantage of their opportunities on Wednesday night in Orlando. Now, who really stood out to you, and who maybe is ready to take that next step?
There are a few players. I think it was more than one. I mean, you have, someone like Milcevic, if I'm going to say his name correct. He's going down to play with, in Argentina, Huracan. Adam Clark did extremely well. He's with Montreal now. But I think the player that's been on the rise and finally got an opportunity in a big form is Jack McLean. He's a player that's playing for the Union for a long time, and the rumors are that he'll be going to Bruges, whether it's at the end of this summer or even earlier. And he proved with his left foot, quality, break line, shoots from distance, he's got a little bit of an it factor. And Pochettino said, if you're playing and you're free in form, he will continue to give you consideration. And I think Jack McLean, out of most of them, really kind of raises his stock. And I think he'll be a player that we should be looking at.
Yeah, awful lot of players really had an opportunity, and a few really did take advantage. All right, thanks, Mal. More coming up a little bit later on in the show. We'll get into the Premier League title race in just a bit. Now, I want to invite you to join Sporting Jacks at the Riverside Craft Beer Festival, Sunday, February 23rd, under the Fuller Warren Bridge. More than 100 local and national craft beers, food trucks, a cornhole tournament, and live music. The festival opens for general admission at 1 p.m. with VIP starting at noon. For tickets, go to riversidecraftbeerfestival.com. The festival benefits Community Peds Care and the Riverside Rotary Foundation and is presented by the Deviser Foundation. Season tickets are now on sale. Here's a look at the seating map for Hodges Stadium for the USL Super League Sporting Jacks season. Tickets start as low as $10 per game for students and go up to the field and premium hospitality seats. Join the movement and be part of the first professional women's team in Jacksonville. Go to sportingjacks.com/tickets for more information. Coming up, we get Becky Burleigh's perspective on Avery Patterson's Futures Camp experience and what moves caught her eye this week in the USL Super League. That's next as the Sporting Jacks Report rolls on. When the USL Super League season kicks off the second half of the year, you can catch every game streaming on Peacock. Fort Lauderdale and Tampa Bay will play February 8th in the first game back from the break. Pace of signings has picked up around the league, starting with Spokane signing Allie Cook, the former Chicago Red Stars draft pick and former Oregon Duck, who heads back to the Northwest to continue her pro career for the Zephyr, who scored the second fewest goals in the first half of the season. Lexington also needed some big changes, and they went out and added 3 players this week, former Georgia Bulldog and USC Trojan Hannah White, Cynthia Cabezas, who they acquired on loan from the San Diego Wave of the NWSL. They also added midfielder Nicole Vernus, a former Georgia Bulldog and Florida Gator, to the roster. She just completed her college career. Another notable move this week made by Fort Lauderdale United, who signed Julia Grosso, who as a rookie was the Player of the Year in the Australian Women's League. She comes back home to Florida to try to help Fort Lauderdale stay in playoff position. And finally, another former Gator, goalkeeper Alexa Goldberg, has signed with Brooklyn FC, another player who just completed her college career. Here's a look at how the standings in the USL Super League look at the winter break. Brooklyn on top. Again, the top 4 teams will make the postseason. As you note, everybody played 14 games except for Fort Lauderdale and Tampa. They'll have to play one another after they lost a game during a hurricane. So they actually start the second half a week ahead of any of the other teams in the league. And that is a battle for one of the playoff positions as the second half of the season approaches. We now welcome in Becky Burleigh, as we do each and every week. Becky, we heard from Avery Patterson a little bit earlier. What struck you about her experience that she talked about with the Futures Camp?
Well, first of all, I just want to express my admiration for her game. I think she is one of the most exciting young players because she's so different. Like her IQ, her technical ability, her tactical knowledge. But to think about like her experience and listening to her talk about that, one is probably just more reinforcement for me about thinking why Emma Hayes has been such a great choice for us as a national team coach. And secondly, it just goes to show you that when a player of her IQ still thinks that she needs to step up her game to think quickly, that to me just tells us the level of which our national team is playing at.
Talking about Emma Hayes, obviously we've seen futures camps before, but she's casting a wide net right now looking for talent for the future. What are your thoughts on this futures camp in general?
100% true on that. And I think that's what it's so wise of Emma to think about it this way, because it really is creating an environment in the U.S. where people see that if they perform, they're going to get invited in. And I'm not sure it's always felt that way in the U.S. It feels like it's a little bit like a contained, smaller group. But this ability to open that roster up, I think, has given a lot of hope to a lot of players. And it's made for even players who aren't at that level yet an exciting thing to aspire to.
We also talked to Avery about what it would be like to have a professional women's team in her hometown here in Jacksonville. When you hear her talk about the impact that it would have, it really underlines what we've been talking about all along.
Absolutely. I mean, when you are able to be front and center and see a product on the field that is something that you aspire to, like, it makes that path to pro just come to life. And we just haven't really had that in a lot of places, and particularly in Jacksonville. But I think you cannot underestimate the power of being able to be up close and personal in that environment.
We've talked about some of the moves that are being made now with the USL Super League. The one that really stands out to me from this week is Julia Grasso signing with Fort Lauderdale. Comes from the Australian League, comes back to the United States. This is exactly why the USL Super League was launched.
Wow, you hit the nail on the head with that one, because I think that is one of the biggest reasons that the necessity of the USL exists. Because think about how many of these players, whether they're unsigned free agents at this point, whether they're players that only option prior to this was to play overseas, now have found a home in the USL. And I think there's way more out there that we haven't even discovered yet that are still in the expansion stage of like, hey, this is an idea that I can come back and play in the USL if I want to.
All right, good stuff, Becky. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next week. Hey, if you want to sign up now for season tickets for the USL Super League, you'll receive a limited edition inaugural season scarf. Be part of the first women's pro team in Jacksonville of any sport. Go to sportingjacks.com for more. Still to come, our youth soccer spotlight. We take a closer look at the recent Florida Elite College ID Camp, which gave local soccer stars a chance to impress college coaches and scouts. That's next as the Sporting Jacks Report rolls on. In the coming months, Sporting Jacks will be unveiling the inaugural kit, but you can already get official Sporting Jacks merchandise, from shirts and hats to sweatshirts and scarves. Just use that QR code on your screen or go to sportingjacks.com/shop to get your official club gear today. Time now for the Youth Soccer Spotlight, presented by the Bearded Pig Barbecue. This past weekend, Florida Elite hosted a college ID camp for prospective college soccer players from our area. Coaches from 49 different men's and women's college soccer programs were on hand to scout 180 local players. Camps like these help college coaches get a better idea of how to potentially see how recruits will possibly interact, compete, and deal with teammates. Also gives them a first-hand look at how a player handles adversity. Think of it like the NFL Combine for high school soccer players looking to take their career to the next level.
One of the most successful one we did. So several players, new players from greater Northeast area, Northeast Florida, and lots of players came in. It was very good, great environment, lots of schools came, and it's very important to show our players the pathway. Now, when we talk about the Sporting Jacks, of course, from the youth game, U23, and you go college and you go to professional level, all levels are available right now for our players, and it was a great event.
I thought it was fun. Having a lot of coaches, you want to play your hardest, so obviously seeing all the coaches made me want to play better, and I think I did the best out of myself.
It's a lot of pressure, but if you have the right mindset and mentality, you can
play hard and play your best in front of all these coaches. Obviously, we got to thank Florida Elite first for letting us come out here with many good coaches. I did speak to a few, which was good. Like I said, though, like Robert said, it was all about pressure, but at the same time, you have a great opportunity in front of all these coaches. So it was just fun, and I just thank Florida Elite for hosting this. It was very nice, very good.
Yeah, same for me. Thank Florida Elite for giving us this opportunity, and it's really good to just play in front of these college coaches and show your true potential to them and make sure you play good.
Mauricio, as a former college coach, you've been to a lot of these ID camps. What's important out at these things?
Well, it's a great opportunity to get in front of a lot of different coaches. Oftentimes, when you go to a school's ID camp, you get to see one or two coaches, or when the coach comes to see you at your game, the context is not great because you may or may not get the ball depending on your opposition. So this is a more private, intimate environment where you actually get the coaches to come into your training environment with your coaches. You should feel a little bit more comfortable, even though players still get nervous because they got eyeballs all over them. But this is a great benefit for a club to be able to attract so many different colleges of different levels too. D1, D2, D3, junior college. There's a space for everybody to play college soccer. So when they come into your environment, you hopefully feel a little bit more comfortable.
All right, we'll have more from Mauricio coming up in just a bit. Be sure to join us every Tuesday night at 6 on 1010XL for the Sporting Jack Soccer Hour. It's on 1010 AM. You can also listen online or on demand at 1010XL.com. Still to come, a closer look at the Man City-Chelsea matchup in the Premier League. That's next as the Sporting Jacks Report rolls on. You can watch the Sporting Jacks Report every Saturday before the start of the Premier League broadcast on NBC 12, and you can also find us on demand on First Coast News Plus and the Sporting Jacks YouTube channel. Speaking of the Premier League, coming up right after us, it's Man City hosting Chelsea at the Etihad. After some unusual stumbles to start the season, Man City seems to have righted the ship. They have 3 wins and 2 draws in their last 5 matches. Chelsea, meanwhile, going in the opposite direction since rising to second in the table in mid-December. 3 draws and 2 losses. Then on Monday, they got back to it. These two teams would seem to be out of the race for the title probably, but they have an awful lot to play for with 16 matches left in the season. Mauricio, your thoughts on what we're going to see here in this matchup and how much these two clubs have to play for?
Yeah, this is a story of who can make it into the Champions League. Chelsea has not been even a contender in the Champions League the last couple of years. Man City has obviously have done extremely well, but this year they hit that roadblock. If they can come back after having gone 7-9 games without a win, and they actually climb themselves back up into 4th place, which is what this game coming up next will do, get them into 4th place, push Chelsea down. If I'm Nottingham Forest and Arsenal, I'm shaking in my boots that if City gets on a roll as they are now, they might be a dangerous team coming up to 2nd and 3rd place.
Yeah, I have a feeling you're right. I think this is the kind of team, because of their history, their recent history especially, a lot of teams will be looking over their shoulder to see what City, the defending champs, will be doing. Mauricio, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next week. And we invite you to connect with Sporting Jacks on social media. You see all the handles for the major social media platforms: X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and yes, TikTok. Follow us to stay up to date with everything that's happening with Sporting Jacks. We'll have more on the activities of the professional men's and women's soccer team coming to Jacksonville. The season countdown is on for the USL Super League women's team. Thanks so much for joining us right here on the Sporting Jacks Report.